Afternoon, and welcome to those in the audience and or watching online. Today is January 17th, 2025, and the time is 4 p.m. I will now call this special meeting of the ISD 191 Board of Education to consider action items related to the procedures, timelines, application form, and selection process to fill a board vacancy. This vacancy is due to the resignation of Director Mersal on January 7th, 2025. In 2024, the HF 4772 Elections Bill included a new provision effective July 1st, 2024, that states that if a school board vacancy occurs less than 2 years before the end of the term, no special election is required and the vacancy can be filled by board appointment. During today's meeting, we will consider action items that will start the process to fill this vacancy. Director Chester, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Moved by Director Chester.
Second.
Seconded.
Seconded by Director Mickelson. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The first item on our agenda will be the consideration to adopt a resolution establishing the procedures and timeline to fill the current board vacancy. As mentioned earlier, the vacancy exists on the Board of Education due to the resignation of Safio Mersal on January 7th, 2025. Since there are less than 2 years remaining in the unexpired term, according to State Statute 123B.09, the board can appoint a member to serve the remainder of the term. At a work session held during our regular meeting on January 9th, the board spent time outlining a process and timeline to fill this vacancy. The outcome of that discussion has been put into a resolution that I will bring forward shortly, but before doing so, I wanted to mention that the Board of Education has a board vacancy planning retreat scheduled for February 7th. At this time, the board will review and screen all of the candidate applications and will finalize the interview planning process for the public interviews to be held the evening of February 12th, 2025. Members of the public will find all application steps for the candidates outlined on the proposed application form up for approval later on in this meeting. With the context and background, we will now move forward to the resolution and vacancy approval items before us, starting with the resolution to establish a procedure and timeline to fill board vacancy. The Board of Education will accept applications from individuals interested in filling the vacant director's position beginning on January 21st, 2025 at 8 a.m., ending on February 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. The appointment will be evidenced by a resolution adopted by the board and entered into the school board minutes and will continue for the remaining unexpired term of that office. The appointee will be sworn in as a director of the Independent School District Number 191 during a regular business meeting of the board to be held on March 27th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve this resolution as presented just now and outlined in the board packet materials?
So moved.
Moved by Director Alt.
Second.
Second by Director Hume. Is there any discussion? Having been moved and seconded, this resolution will require a roll call vote. So in just a second, I will ask Sarah to call the roll, and when she calls your name, please respond with either an aye, or if you are in favor of the resolution, or nay if you are opposed. Sarah, will you please make the roll call?
Director Hume,
Aye. Director Mickelson? Aye. Director Alt?
Aye.
Chair Wirt?
Aye.
Director Schuster?
Aye.
Director Anderson?
Aye. This resolution was declared duly passed and adopted. Next, we will consider approving the board candidate application form. This form outlines the steps of the process for potential candidates and includes the questions that the board will use to review and screen applicants. Is there a motion to approve the candidate application form?
So moved.
Moved by Director Hume. Second by Director Anderson.
Second.
Is there any discussion? So I would like to bring forward an item for discussion. So after thinking about this proposed application the past few days, I feel like the application is a little too long. I think it could be a deterrent for people to complete, and I would prefer to hear the responses to some of the questions directly from the candidates during the interview process. I would also like to see us include clarifying verbiage to the application page that makes clear the part of our process includes information that the questions on the application form will be used by the board to narrow the applicants before conducting interviews at a public meeting. Before I move to formally amend this motion, I would like to have some discussion around that, what items could potentially be moved off the application form and towards the public interview questions. Please note, we can further vet and finalize the public interview questions during our retreat scheduled on February 7th. So for the scope of this discussion, I'd like to keep it just to items that we could pull off the application. So I don't know if I kept my packet from last week. Hang on. Okay, so I just wanted to, hang on a second while I pull these up. I feel like if we could just figure out like some of the main questions that kind of get the gist of why somebody is applying without going into like these really lengthy explanations. Like we even talked about the fact that, you know, there's a word limitation. And some of these questions could be things that they maybe feel like they want to explain further. So, I mean, I think obviously tell us about yourself, I think would be something we should keep on here. Why are you applying? What is your experience in 191? I feel like we need to keep it somewhat simple, not super complicated questions. Maybe like what experience do you have serving on a board or
I don't know that that would be a fair question.
Okay.
Because I don't know how many people
Well,
have prior experience on a board.
I think it's just more like what about anything with your, you know, well, what is it that you feel you can bring to the board? Kind of a question type thing?
or maybe like
skills
what
do you
about
have
your
or what do you have?
background maybe would be beneficial for the
Right,
board?
yeah.
That's maybe where I was
Yeah,
going with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do think it's important from a perspective approach to keep number 18, which is, oh wait, no, that's just a verification thing. The Code of Ethics question on number 17. Governing versus managing, that's important. And 15.
Yeah. Time
I think,
commitment.
would you intend to file for election for the position? But also the time commitment, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
I agree about the governing and managing being important. what I question is, should it be on the application or should it be an interview question?
Right.
So it might be a
Yeah.
more conversational response.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do agree, though,
That
that
was
the
actually
code of
one that I was
ethics
thinking we could
question
have maybe
should.
moved.
Pull.
Yeah.
And it might be kind of helpful just to see, I don't know, how, have they taken some time to identify some of that?
True. Yep, no,
Yeah,
that's fair.
with the
Yep.
interview question.
Yeah. I was just going to say that I'd agree that the code of ethics question should stay.
Yeah.
And the intent to apply. Do we explain the time commitment for board members?
I thought I
Is that
had
something-
read
It's at the
it
top.
on the top.
Okay.
That's-
It's alluded to.
That was another one that I was wondering.
But I don't know if
do we
the-
need
if
it in
it's-
the application? Because it is kind of said, like, that's another one that feels like it's more of a conversational question, maybe, because it's already kind of explained at the top.
Well, it's explained at the
It
top.
is, but have they picked up on it, I think, is that like,
But then I think the question is worded weird, strangely odd.
and maybe.
Number 14,
Number
because it says, like,
14.
from your perspective, what is the time commitment for board members? Well, if we have outlined it, it shouldn't, like, it should be stated
could-
differently.
Copy and paste, 20 to
Could-
40 hours per month.
You know,
including-
is it something,
Is it more like how would that fit into your
Yeah, maybe
lifestyle?
that's it.
What kind of commitment would you be willing to make?
Have you
Yeah.
considered how this will,
And that's an
Fits.
interview question.
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
right.
yeah,
So, yeah, remove the time commitment and rephrase it and put it in a bucket for consideration
Yep.
Strike it from the
as part of,
application.
Yeah.
as,
Strike it from the application.
right, but keep it in the bucket for consideration
February
elsewhere.
7th.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I would, yeah, and if we
why I
agreed to
asked you for the
stay
number.
strike 16 too, then, and then it would be an interview question, or no? The managing versus governing?
Yes, yep,
16,
yep,
Yeah.
16 strike. Yep.
strike,
Yeah.
consideration for February 7th.
Yes.
I also wonder about, see, you opened up the dam by asking this question. Questions 10 and 11. 10 is what are the top 3 challenges? Describe your approach. And then the very next question is about school district finances, which to me almost was like a follow-up to the question about the challenges. And again, I think maybe that finance question is better for the interview. And let's keep it a little more broad in the application and just ask what are the challenges?
I
And see if
agree.
that comes up. And whether it comes up or not, I think we'd want to ask it in the interview.
So
I
strike
think the
11.
following
Strike
one as
11.
well. I think 10, 11, and 12 altogether are like
Yeah.
a combo question. They could all go.
I would agree.
Well, I think I would want to know where they are with the top 3 challenges of the district.
That's
But I
broad and
agree.
vague enough,
It's
yeah.
broad and vague enough. I think the other 2.
So 11 and 12?
Yeah, we could make an argument that
Yeah.
elsewhere.
Just a note on 11, second sentence, insert B after would. What would be,
What would your?
Nor?
what
Oh,
would your-
yes.
Oh, yeah.
I believe I didn't catch
Yeah.
that.
Just to clarify, 11 and 12 are striking.
But are we asking, are we replacing 11? Are we just asking what are the top 3 challenges faced in 191?
That's
I think
10.
that's good.
That's
for
10.
just
I
the
think that's
initial-
Am I looking at the,
Yeah.
wrong? I must be looking at the
expand
not
on the
updated version.
I'm looking at the one in board book.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
So the question 10 that we're keeping is what are the top 3 challenges faced by 191 in the next 4 years?
Yeah.
Describe your approach in addressing each of these 3 challenges.
Yeah.
It's a lot in 75 words.
It's a lot, 75 words.
At least it's not 75 characters.
Yes.
Yes. That would be tough.
I do like the nonpartisan position question. I think we should keep that one in the application.
Because part of the application, I mean, it's an initial 2-way
Right.
conversation of, here's kind of the umbrella,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
It's kind of providing some information along
It's
with-
providing them with
For both
information
sides,
as
yeah,
much as
absolutely.
providing us with information. That's why I think that one's important.
Agree.
Is there a reason we're not asking for their email address I just noticed name, address, city, zip, phone number.
It's usually
I mean, I know they have to give us their email address at some point. Oh, okay, because it's a Google
Oh, in the
Doc.
Google form?
But because it's gonna be in paper, I'll add it.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Okay. Add email.
I think that's good.
So we're keeping, besides the, name, address stuff, in 50 words or less, tell us about yourself. Why are you applying for this position?
Yep.
What is your experience in 191 schools? Top 3 challenges. And then we're taking out finance question,
Then the non,
the hot button
Keeping-
issues in
Hot
finance
button,
as a board
yeah,
member
yeah.
question. We're keeping the nonpartisan
yep.
question.
What number is that?
13.
That was
That's
13 is the
Yep,
Yep, keep
nonpartisan.
13. Okay. Thank you.
14, what do we decide on the time commitment one?
I think we put that.
Took that out.
We took it
Keeping
out.
that for the interview?
And rephrased.
Rephrase, yeah.
Consider and re.
15, we're keeping about would you intend to file for election?
Yep. Taking out
Describe the differences
16.
between governing and managing.
We took it
Out.
out.
You took it out? Okay. Interview.
That's 16.
Code of ethics we're keeping.
Keeping.
Yep.
And of course, we're keeping, I certify this is correct.
Yeah.
Keep that one.
Nobody brought that one up, but I'm just going to guess that we want to keep that one.
Good.
Did you get all that? That was as much for me as anybody else.
Thank you.
Did we want to add, I believe, I can't remember, somewhere I saw, like, we were, I think, going to say, just like have a caveat as far as, depending on the amount of applications received, we may or may not use the questions to move people forward. Which, by meaning, if we receive say we received, I know this is outlandish, maybe 25 people. And then we would say, okay, we're going to use the questions on the application to vet people and either move them forward or not move them forward. If we received 3, then we would more than likely want to interview all of them.
Somewhere like, submission of
I
an
would be-
application
I don't know.
is not a guarantee of moving to the next step.
Right. It's
Kind
like,
of phrasing.
it was,
yeah.
and it's more like we may do this. I don't know. Like,
Is that part of the selection process overview?
I'm just looking.
Oh, wait, no, that's selecting the
On
actual person,
the
not
first part of the application, it kind of outlines the steps.
Mm-hmm.
And step 4, I think, is maybe what you're referencing. The interview, the Board of Education will hold public interviews of candidates on February 12th. Maybe we want to add something to that
we
statement
select
saying
out of
that,
the applications.
right, that based on the information provided in this application, you may be selected to be interviewed
Yes.
on such and
Yes.
such a date.
yes.
Just playing devil's advocate, though, because originally I was completely on board with this.
Okay.
Some people are better in person than on paper.
True.
I don't disagree that vetting them through the applications makes sense. At the same time, and I cringe as I say this, if somebody takes the time to apply for the position,
And the risk of any kind of appearance of bias based on name or
yeah.
their language skills, in writing. I mean, it does open up a concern.
Even if-
It's a very good point.
even if we get 20,
But-
do we owe them an interview? Given what we're interviewing for and who we serve, I don't know. I
Good question.
had to bring it up just because it had been on my mind.
If we're not basing the decision on their writing skills so much as the actual content in their answers, and if we were to, the same way that when you're applying for a job and there's the disclaimer of not discriminating.
I don't know how you can separate the two if you're multilingual. I mean, the content might be impacted by what you put into it, and given the amount of time that we're giving them.
I hear what you're saying. And I think it's likely, based on the last 4 elections, that we'll have a small enough pool that we'll be able to interview everybody who
Right.
applies.
Right.
But I would like to have the flexibility in the unlikely event we get 20 applications, that we can at least narrow it down to even 10, because I think 20 is too many.
But-
And it would be really hard to even keep straight who said what if we had to interview 20 people in one night.
So I remember an application process that had like 14 people apply. And
Yeah, I was
everybody,
one of those 14.
yeah, and everybody got interviewed at least once.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
I-
I just think we need to have the, I mean.
I like throwing in the idea of flexibility.
May,
Right.
so.
But the word
May.
may,
May.
because,
Yeah.
just
Why-
because,
yeah,
okay, for question 8, for example, why are you applying for the position on the school board?
Right.
Given their response to that question, would we disqualify somebody?
Could be. Could
You
be.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it's clear they don't align to the strategic vision of the district.
Yep.
Would we select to interview them?
I'm on board with May.
I like May. Like I
Yes.
said, I just want us to have the flexibility, knowing that we'll probably get a handful and,
In real,
Right.
yeah, in all reality,
right.
it's just not that popular of a position.
Can you recap this sentence to
Now
add
they
to
just
step
want the
four?
MSBA contract this year.
Yeah.
What's that?
Can you recap the sentence to add to step 4 with the may in it, please?
Step 3.
Yeah, so it would be step 3, because.
Step 3.
Right.
yeah.
The Board of Education will hold a retreat to review and screen applications. Based on this screening, the board may select some,
You may
sub-
be
a
selected.
subset of candidates to interview,
Yeah. Sarah, did you get that? You want-
something along those lines.
Good.
Somebody help me wordsmith it. but-
Based on the screen, the board may narrow applicants before.
May narrow the applicant pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
May narrow the applicant pool. Shall I read it back?
Yes.
It would be under step 3, application review. On February 7th, 2025 at 4 p.m., the Board of Education will hold a special meeting to review and screen applications. Based on this screening, the board may narrow the applicant pool for public interviews.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's a retreat.
Retreat.
Retreat, sorry.
Yep. It's okay.
And then the next step says, the Board of Education will hold public interviews on February 12th. So yes, then I think we're covered.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great discussion. Okay.
Thank you, Chair Werb.
Now, do we need to
Yep.
vote on the amendment, or how does it all, now the Robert's Rules of Order goes out of my brain?
Okay,
Oh,
so,
yeah. Good point.
Okay, good.
okay, so I'm going to list the item, it says removing items listed, so am I supposed to list all the items that we're removing,
You
Sarah?
want me to recap them for you? So the amended would be that we would be adding email.
Hang on, I'm gonna write it down.
It's all being recorded also.
I think I have to state it for this.
Oh, you probably do.
Adding the email, striking number 11, number 12, number 14, and number 16.
Okay.
And there was no other word change in any of the others,
Oh,
right?
And adding the language to the application review.
Yes.
That we may narrow the pool.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so in adding the email address to the application, as well as striking questions 11, 12, 14, and 16, and then adding language to clarify the application review. Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, did you
Sec-
move it? You moved it.
Yeah, I did it before we
Oh,
did that.
right.
Yeah, for the discussion, yep. I have moved and seconded by Anne Marie Olson.
Anderson?
Anderson?
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Director Anderson has seconded to amend the original motion to approve the application. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. We will now move forward with approving the original motion as amended. The simplified application and the added clarifications around using applications to narrow the applicants before conducting interviews. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Our final item to consider is an approval of the board candidate selection process. This is the same process used during the vacancy in 2020. The names and titles of board members and staff have been updated, but all other parts of the process would remain the same. Is there a motion to approve the candidate selection process?
So moved?
Moved by Director Alt,
Second,
seconded by Director Chester. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, and this will probably come up again, but the significance of the difference with this process as compared to our typical process in which a second is always required. What we're saying is they're one of three options. We choose an applicant, we deadlock, and we may choose not to appoint. And within that, board members can motion, they can choose to motion, they can choose to second, and they can choose not to second, which is how the selection process will happen.
So if I nominate Joe Smith and none of you second, then Joe Smith is out.
Correct. Yep. And rather than being on that knee-jerk second,
Right.
we have to be thinking about, okay, who is it that I want to see? And that's the person that I'm either going to move for as in a singular act for myself, or second as part of somebody else's motion, or not.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Director Alt.
Yeah.
Okay, so did I already say already? All those in favor say aye? Or you stopped me before I said that, right?
You have not said it yet.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. The time is now, I don't know what the time is.
428.
4:28, and having no further agenda items, I now call to adjourn this meeting of the Board of Education.